Hey guys, JellyFish MMA here, and we're here to talk about the Raja Jackson situation. And there is so much more than we understood there to be. There's so much more than I understood it to be. There's so much more details about the situation and what to make of it. That a lot of people, including myself, that in the beginning we just didn't understand or didn't see fully or didn't know fully. So I had already made a video about this, but after discovering all this new information, I had to put out this video, what I'm saying, to, really see and talk and really delve into what was really going on and what happened. So let's start with what I said. In my previous video, long story short, I basically just talked about how what happened was basically Raja Jackson had an emotional outburst, that he's emotionally unstable, that he's an unstable human being, and I didn't believe that he had any psychological problems, but now, after some time, after some looking at all the evidence and the guys, especially the wrestlers who were on that night or that day when the incident happened, a lot of information came out. Turns out this stuff had more workings to it than what we understood it to be. So I'm going to talk about that in this video. So first, let's talk about Raja Jackson. So turns out Raja Jackson's mother was killed. He had his mother taken from him. Now, obviously, that's not an excuse for what happened, and it doesn't justify what happened at all. But it doesn't justify what happened at all, right? It's not like, oh, your mother died, like that doesn't justify it at all. But the thing is, like, I started asking myself about the situation that, dang, there's a lot of people who have a lot of horrible things happen to them, bad things happen to them. They get disrespected. They have all these types of things happen to them as well. But, they don't lash out. They don't go out and do the things that Raja Jackson has done, right? And now let's talk about Rampage Jackson, the father. Turns out the father was actually encouraging this type of behavior. He was saying, oh, you were hugging men with tights, basically calling him a bitch or weak and just, really giving him shit for the situation, right? And a lot of people are trying to come at this angle saying that, well, Raja Jackson is older, he's older, he's 25 years old, so obviously he should have thicker skin than that. And I 100% agree with that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But, especially from Rampage Jackson, and this is going to justify what I'm about to say further on in this video, but especially from Rampage Jackson, right? Like, a lot of you guys are in families, right? You're in a family. You know how your siblings are, right? You know how your siblings are, right? You know how your mother is. You know how your father is. You know if your sister or your brother is a bit short-tempered, or maybe they're a bit sensitive, or maybe they're a bit however they are, right? But the thing is, why I'm going to say what I'm about to say, Rampage Jackson is Raja Jackson's dad. If you know your son, you know how your son is. And in that moment when he's calling you, you can tell when a family member is talking to you. You've been around them long enough to know that when they're in a moment of distress or panic or angst or just something, you can tell something's going on. And in that moment, Rampage Jackson decides to make fun of his son. He makes fun of his son. He's trying to make a joke out of the situation for views. For what? And even if you watch some of the other interviews and the other stuff that they do, Rampage Jackson is just constantly making jokes at his son, poking fun at his son, doing all this other stuff at his son. And don't get me wrong, like, here's the thing. We are outside people, right? You and me, you're watching this. We're outside people, right? We only see Rampage Jackson on YouTube or maybe Instagram, maybe Twitter. We only see this guy on TV, basically, right? In a way, right? Because YouTube is basically the new TV these days, right? But we only see this guy on TV, basically, or on our phones or on our screens, right? And in my video, right, if you go back and watch my video, I made that video saying that, oh, obviously these guys are just putting on an act and they're just putting on a performance. Obviously he's not like that. But I guess I was wrong, because the fact that he doesn't know his son enough, or doesn't care enough, or isn't aware enough to know that, listen, my son isn't in the right space right now. What happened was wrong. I should go see what's going on with my son, and basically be a father at that moment. Not necessarily, absolve him from what happened, but I do believe that Rampage Jackson is a bigger contributor to this situation than what we are acknowledging it to be. You understand? A lot of people are putting the blame on Raja Jackson, and I 1,000% am with you guys on that boat as well. We're all on that boat as well, but we're not putting or pointing or just talking enough about how Rampage Jackson's influence and how he is a terrible father. I'm just gonna say the words out loud. He is a terrible father. I mean, there's this video where he basically, I guess this is his idea of a joke, where he jokes or says that for his two Japanese kids he has college funds for them. He even bought one of them a car, if you guys saw that, right? But then for Raja Jackson, he has bail money set aside. Basically he does this thing that unfortunately happens in many families, where kids get picked apart from one another, where a parent, the mother or the father, will pick certain kids above the other kids, because I never really see Rampage Jackson act and behave that way and in that manner to his Japanese kids, especially not his daughter, at least. We don't really see that. Yeah, look, we know, like, Rampage Jackson is the type of guy to tell like raunchy jokes and make these type of out of pocket inappropriate jokes. That's his whole thing, right? And it's funny on camera. It has a time and place, and it's pretty cool. But now that I'm looking back at it, Rampage Jackson, I remember I was watching the Khamzat Chimaev stuff. We had a big video about that, and that was a whole thing. UFC 319, you guys remember that, right? And I'm sure you watched some of the Jackson podcast things there. But in some of those exchanges too, like, Rampage Jackson definitely strikes me as, now looking back at it now, right? Because look, guys, sometimes in life, right, you might not be aware of something at that time, right? Whether you're interacting with a person or something, and only after later on, when information comes out and things come out, and then now you look back at the situation, you go like, oh wait, something was off over here. And now that I'm piecing it up together now, Rampage Jackson definitely strikes me as one of these guys, and I'm sure you guys know them, and I've never been around him, so that's how I I'm speculating here, but based off the information just came out now, is that Rampage Jackson definitely strikes me as one of these guys, or one of these people, where they don't know when to stop joking. You get me? Like, I'm sure you guys have been in this, where somebody's always jokes, ha ha, hee ha, funny, and doesn't know when to stop with the jokes. It's actually time to start being serious. And I have evidence to say that, because when his son was calling him in a time of distress, instead of being there for his kid, stopping the fucking jokes, he decides to make more jokes. It's the perfect time to make content. Ha ha, you hugging up on dudes, you a bitch too. And I talked about this in my previous video. I said that, look, the chat was rage baiting him, but god damn it, so was his dad, and I'm not doing this to put all the blame on Raja Jackson, and we're going to get into the other things that came into this. Going to be the other things that came into this, but my thing is that, like, you can see that Raja Jackson, it comes from neglect. I'm just being honest. He comes from neglect. He has parental issues. His mother passed away. His father is not good for him. It seems like his father, I wouldn't be surprised, did not take care of him. Did not take care of him very much. Like I said in the previous video, there was a video of him coming out saying that, oh, my dad, that's his money. I'm just like you guys. I don't have, I'm saying, like, that's my dad's money and stuff, right? So I can definitely empathize with that aspect. Like I keep on saying, it's not to justify what happened at all. Raja Jackson is a danger to people. Okay, some people like Raja Jackson, people with the types of issues that he has, are not supposed to be running around, interacting with normal people. They should not be doing that. He's a danger to himself and even other people as well. There's even another time when the Rampage talked about this, where he was fighting with his kid. Now, it makes me think that, Rampage Jackson's just a terrible father. I mean, to his Japanese kids, he's like, he seems to be all so loving with them, but with the other child, it's like he's not like that. And I'm just gonna be honest, like, you can't be a great man, you can't be a good man if you are not there for your kids. How can you call yourself a great man when, you know, um you're not taking care of your kids, you're not being there for your kids, you don't understand your children or their temperaments and how they are and how to handle those types of things, you know? And then now we get into what the wrestlers were talking about, you know? We get into the wrestlers, what they're talking about. They had like a little podcast happening, and turns out, you know, if you watch that video, there was this guy, this cowboy hat guy, who basically said to Raja that, yeah, you can come get your kickback, or what is it, your lick back, or your basically your revenge in some fashion. We're gonna organize it for you. And you know, to be fair, on top of that, you know, it's I didn't think that he meant it in the sense of like, oh yeah, you know, go in there and like put in some mean punches on him and some crazy punches like in that manner, right? Maybe it was supposed to be like a couple 2-2, maybe you can put a little sting on it, but you know, nothing crazy. But the thing is that I just, now that we see what's happened, is just the entire thing was just, you know, horribly managed. You know, whatever that little company's name is, Nox Wrestler, Nox Pro, whatever the fuck, whatever those guys' names is, they really fucked up and really let down one of their employees. Apparently, you know, Psycho Stu, the wrestling guy, he was there ever since day one. He was one of their, I guess, their number one employees, you know, employee of the year or whatever. And the fact that they let that happen to their guy, that they let that happen, I mean, like, to be very honest and to be very frank, like, I didn't understand why they let Raja Jackson go up on there. You know, I didn't think it was necessary in any fashion or sense, you know, and I don't know why they did that. I don't know if they knew that that was Rampage Jackson's son. Maybe they thought it was gonna, you know, open up some opportunities for them in some capacity or whatever. But um that was also a thing, you know. But you know, basically that guy, the psycho hat, the cowboy hat guy with the booty shorts on and stuff, turns out that guy had a problem with Psycho Stu, right? They, I guess they had some personal issues. So this guy went like, oops, perfect idea for me to get at Psycho Stu without me having to do it directly, right? Like, this guy's a dangerous friend. You know, like I said, in the moment, you probably didn't notice this when you were watching the clip. I didn't really see this and notice this. Only now, when you start analyzing it, you're just like, oh wait, you know, this guy is just the classic example of a terrible. He's not even a friend. He's an enemy. You know. Now, to be fair, we don't know what they were beefing over with, but this is clearly a man with no morals. This is clearly a man who you cannot trust. And there's people like this in life. You know what I'm saying? And you know, they're just vicious. They're just nasty individuals. And on top of that, you know, we talk about the guy Doug, you know, the guy who jumped on Raja Jackson to stop him. That guy, you know, he spoke about how some of the people who were working there basically told him that, yeah, just stay on standby, you know, in case. And it just makes me think that, did they, what the hell was going on? You know, like, what the hell was this, some sort of, you know, plan from their side that they wanted Raja Jackson to do this, you know? It's just very scummy. And then what makes it, what even validates what I'm saying, what even gives me more reason to say what I just said, is that after this entire event, the organization was saying to some of the wrestlers in there that, oh, don't speak to the police. We want certain people talking to the police. And on top of that, I want people to repost this and to get some sort of attention and clout. I mean, it's just nasty to the bone. It's just nasty, nasty work, you know. And this is just so horrible. There's just no other way I can put it. And then now, what makes it even worse, you know, you get people on this weird side on the internet. They you know how these guys are. Every time one person, another person of different races or religions pop up, you know, they're gonna make that a big thing, making this even a more nasty, more unnecessary. It is just, this entire situation is absolutely wild. It's genuinely crazy, and it's genuinely sad. It's genuinely sad. You know, like, it's so sad, and it's very complex. But you know, one thing we can all agree on is that Raja Jackson needs to be punished. Now, in my previous video, I did speak about listen, guys, the legal system, in terms of how it works, in terms of how the laws, police, and things like that, whole entire process is not as simple as it sounds. Like, it's not as simple as people would think it is. I know any one of you guys who have that type of experience with police and all these violence cases, and all these types of things. They're not as simple as that. They're not as simple as, oh, this guy did this. We all feel this way. Get him arrested. In fact, Roger Jackson, from at least the time of me recording, still hasn't been arrested. And I even said this, that I highly doubt he'll get arrested. And I still stand on a lot of the core points I said beforehand. I just got into the more detail about this entire thing. You know, and the thing is, that's the unfortunate thing. Like, I know we as a group, as a MMA community or whatever, we can be like, yo, this is a big problem. But guys, I said this, and it hurts me to say this, but it's the truth, is that when this gets to the police, which it probably already has, they're not going to treat this case any differently than another fight that happened. I'm sure on the internet, especially Twitter, you guys see these fights happening, people fighting, people getting kicked in the head, people like crazy stuff, and these people, even in my own life, I've seen some of this stuff happen, and people don't really go to jail or they get slapped on their wrist, really. This is the reality of the situation, and I think this really shows some of the bigger problems we have in the legal system, of how lackadaisical some of the police are, and just how some of these police officers and just judges and stuff, they just don't care. They just don't care, really. Almost like you need to beg these people to do their job, something that you pay your hard-earned tax for their fucking salaries, and then they don't do anything. It's a fucking weird thing, and justice, if it is going to be served, and it pains me to say probably won't be served, you know it's probably not going to happen, unfortunately, and that's just something that needs to change. And although this happened with Psycho Stu, I mean, there's so many young men and women and kids who horrible things happen to them, and it breaks my heart. And that's probably that's why you see me getting in. That's how you saw that in this video I came in with so much energy, because it's not just about Psycho Stu, it's all about all the young men and women and just people in general who just don't get the justice that they deserve, almost like you don't matter, or that it's stupid. And I know this one, it's like it's on TV, like I explained, it's on YouTube, it went viral, so it's going to be that. But the unfortunate reality is that once this thing blows over, that's it. And the reality is, what's going to happen is that, even the wrestlers spoke about this, is that I said this, which is that this is probably not going to go to a criminal whatever. And even if it did, if Roger Jackson doesn't have a previous history or whatever, he's probably going to get slapped on the wrist, and they're probably going to go get a civil case or whatever against Raja Jackson, and his dad is going to fork up a good chunk of money. And at least in that case, if that's all you can get, if you can't take the person to jail, at least get some money. Especially for him, he won't be able to be the same. Guys, when you get hit like that, the guy could have died, like, and that is scary. And yes, people are gonna be like, I know this guy, on Twitter, he basically went like, oh well, the guy deserves what he got. Don't play with people. He deserved it. And look, that would have been a valid argument if Psycho Stu didn't apologize. Even I want to say it would have been half valid, is what I meant. It would have been a half valid argument, like, but that would have been somewhat understandable in the sense that if Psycho Stu said, fuck you, whatever, I'm not apologizing, piece of shit little streamer bitch boy, you know what I'm saying? If that was the fucking energy, then I guess. But the fact that Psycho Stu literally goes like, man, he apologized, and it wasn't one of those bullshit apologies like, oh man, sorry, man. You know what I'm saying? Those apologies people try giving you after you call them out on their shit. They like, kind of brush you away and just, oh man, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even like that. The guy was genuinely sorry. He made a mistake. He thought you were a pro wrestler in there. Maybe you're a new guy or something, and, he apologized. That's my thing. And that's the thing, right? And for Roger Jackson, I'm going to just say it. He is bitch made. He is a bitch made little boy. He is a weak little man. He is a fucking coward. And and look, I understand he has issues. He probably has mother issues, family issues, as do all of us, but, it's just so bitch made for him to do something like that. And he definitely needs help, but I have to call it out that was cowardly. It was disgusting. It was weak, and and this is the thing, man, with these new streamers and things, even with some of the videos that came out, which He was like, yeah, I'm gonna knock him out for subs, bro. If you got sub, if I you got sub when I knock him out, bro. Just this streaming culture, it's a disease. Obviously there's some good people out there streaming, just making people laugh. It's all jokes, and it really is just like, I'm sure you guys know who IShow Speed is. I don't like him. I think he's too much, but that's beside the point. Like, it's a disease for clout, and I guess it got into his dad making fun of him on stream as well. It's so disgusting, and the people rage baiting. I don't even know if I can fully blame. I have to blame them as well, but I can't remove the number one person to blame, which is Roger Jackson. And it's just, this entire situation is just so painful. It hurts from so many different angles when you think about it, and it just is awful. It's really, really awful. I think there's a lot more people who need to take accountability for what happened. It's not, yes, the number one person at the top of the pyramid is Roger Jackson, but there's a lot of other people who definitely played a factor into this, from the organizers who even let Roger Jackson to even get inside there, from Rampage Jackson egging him on, even the chat too. I have to put stuff there on the chat as well, that, like, I guess one thing that sometimes as people we don't realize is that we have more influence over people than what we understand ourselves to be. Our words, whether it's Rampage Jackson, the chat, or even Rampage, or even Psycho Stu a little bit, to a lesser degree, we affect people much more deeply than what we understand we do. And I just think that, I think in our own personal lives, we should definitely go about people a bit more tactical, especially, and not just take things, and just not just do things just because we can see how, when we stack those things one on top of another, what can happen, and obviously, still, I have to always say this: Roger Jackson should definitely be arrested. Will he be arrested? That's another thing, but it's very disgusting, and it's just, I can keep on repeating myself, but you know I just really hope Psycho Stu gets well. Whatever that bullshit piece of shit company, I hope they fucking go bankrupt and they fold. Rampage Jackson is a terrible father, for how he is and how he raised these child up to be. And Roger Jackson still, despite what happened, what could have been a story about, overcoming and becoming better, and maybe fueling into his own success. He just decided to be a little girl about the situation, a little nasty, ugly little girl about the situation, and turned into a little bitch. And then now it's just so messy and nasty. But I guess at the same time, we should be grateful that we were able to see the truth about certain people, certain characters, a bit more clearly for who they were. And um it's really, we should just be happy we got to see that, and see people for what they actually are, which a lot of the times self-serving, rude, disrespectful, ignorant, and abusive, and manipulative, exploitative, from many different angles, including that company too, because those guys are fucking, and the pussies that work there, not even standing up for what's right, that a man almost lost his life. Like, that guy is a dad, he's somebody's son. I even heard that his dad was there. Your kid, and he's an old man. He can't go up there and fight some fucking 25-year-old MMA pro fighter. You get what I'm saying? Like, man, I could keep ranting on, and I know a lot of you guys feel the exact same way, and no wonder this story took so much steam that it did. But yeah, that's really my thoughts and opinions on the video. Guys, leave a comment, leave a like for the video. Guys, please go donate to Psycho Stu's stuff. I'll chip in some change. I'm, like I said, I'm a high school student. I ain't got all this cash money lying around, but just whatever you can for that guy, he deserves it. And just even in your own personal life, if you ever hear about this type of stuff, abuse or anything, people getting bullied, whether it's in a workspace, school, or anything, just always be there to be that guy. Be the right guy. Don't be one of these people who pile in, or just is quiet and just allows that type of stuff to happen. Because even a person just knowing that, you know, I have, at least they have a little bit of support, it can go such a long way, such a long way. And it matters to that guy or girl, you know, that you can be there for, you know. But aside from that, guys, please like the video, subscribe, comment what you think about this entire situation, or my thoughts and opinions. You know, I will be having more videos coming out. You know, I have some videos about Islam, and you know, Tom Aspinall, and some other videos that I have MMA breakdowns and opinions going on. But aside from that, guys, you know, that's all from me. Jellyfish out. See you guys on the next one. Peace out. Bye.